GMB Pros, GMB Pros. Welcome, family, to Friday. The holidays are here. You know, Christmas just passed us. Those that are catching the replay or time of the recording, right? The New Year's is upon them. So hopefully a lot of us have our goals already set up, the lagging and the leading goals, right? We kind of talked about that, have our niches picked out. So I thought it would be a great opportunity. I think it's perfect timing. Our friend Charles Taylor here. He has scaled some businesses, right? And we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive, especially if coming for the new year, what to look for, what to get dialed in, guys, for, as you grow your 0 to 10K a month, your 10K to, 20, 30K a month, 50K a month, 60, 70K a month, right? As you, go from 6 to 7 figures a year. And what are some of the things that I've learned, that Charles has learned, that he sees time and time again? Um, so appreciate you, those that are catching the replay. Appreciate you, those that are here on the live. Carlos, appreciate everyone. Thank you. And again, just to repeat, GMB Pros, our goal is to help scale your agency, right? Or to help get your clients results. And we want to give Charles them, like, as soon as they end this call, stuff that they can implement. And I think with this topic and your experience, it's definitely um, we're going to hit a home run for this. So for those that don't know who you are, Charles, if you can do a quick intro. I like to do things a little different. Usually the host will do the intro. I'm like, man, I'm going to flip this around, right? So if you can, yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, how you got to this point. I would love it to hear it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot for inviting me on. This is exciting. So my name's Charles Taylor. I am currently the Senior Director of SEO for Fox Corporation, and that includes all the names you would expect, everything from the Fox Newses to the business to the weathers to the sports. We've got affiliate stations all across the country. So there's a lot. And quite honestly, a couple years ago before I started there, they didn't really have a center of excellence for SEO. There was no primary SEO guru in the building. It was all just some developer would hear something and they'd put it into the website. Some other developer would hear something else and they'd put it in the website. And obviously, that's not a way to do SEO. No, I don't care how large or small your organization is. That's not a way to do SEO. Before that, I was working with another company, a little company called Verizon. I was there for about 5.5 years. And I performed SEO there. Before that, I was at an e-commerce company called Costume Supercenter. The gentleman who had started Party City, for those of you in the Northeast specifically, may be aware of Party Cities. He had actually started this online in the early 2000s. I joined them in around 2010, I guess it was. I was there for about 5 or 6 years. And before that, I actually started my career, my professional career in enterprise. I was with a company called LexisNexis. Like most people, I start out, or maybe not every, most people I've met, I should say. I've started SEO kind of, I always say people get into SEO by inspiration or desperation. I was definitely on the desperation side. It was early 2000s. I had my own business. I had my own vending business, actually. And I had bought a lot of, I learned in that business that one of the ways to make money is you have to get equipment very cheaply. And so I learned how to buy equipment, but I ended up having too much stuff. I always had too much stuff on my hands, trying to figure out how to sell it. My aunt at the time said, I've heard people sell things online. And so I started selling things online, started off with the eBay and the Amazon, and then said maybe I had some problems with them after a few years in payment problems and listing problems, and you name the issues I had it with them. So I said, what if I make my own website? I can just cut them right out of the mix. And that's kind of how I started around 03, 04. I started building my own websites. Someone said, hey, put analytics on a website. I said, what is that? And they explained it to me. And so I put it on a website. And then I saw this line item that said organic traffic, or I don't even know if it was called organic at the time. It was Alta Vista and Yahoo and things like that. And it's like, what's this? And then I started trolling the web, trying to figure out, well, what is this thing, organic traffic SEO? How does this even work? It's free. I like the sound of that. And so I ended up doing that. I ended up building out affiliate sites for several years. And that's kind of how I fell in love with SEO. And I got into it professionally when I decided, I guess it was around 2007, maybe 2008. I always forget exactly. I decided I've been building sites. I've been, you name it, I was doing it. I decided, well, maybe someone would pay me to learn SEO. Could I get a job doing SEO? And that way I could learn SEO and have my own websites. And that's when I found the company LexisNexis, and that they hired me on it. We were doing small to medium-sized law firms. That was back when it was Google Places or Google My Places or Google Local. I don't even remember what they called it way back then.
Mhm.
We used to do a lot of ranking with Google Local because it was the easy way. Again, back then, it was the easy way to get people ranking very, very quickly. And this was in the law niche. No one told me how tough it was. I just did it, not realizing that, yeah, this is tough. And that's kind of how I started, and that's kind of my journey into SEO. I really want to kind of go back to something you had said when we first started and talked about goals. Now, goals are something I find really, really important. You'll see I have my whiteboard and everything behind me. I'm always taking notes for myself. I'm a very visual kind of manual notes person. I don't do it online as much, although I'm trying to teach myself to do more online. What I got a great tip years ago by a gentleman talking about doing goals, and he mentioned having your goals set before the end of the year. So
Yeah.
he would do goal planning end of November, beginning to December for the next year. And he would do that. He did had a couple reasons for doing it. Number one, that way the first of the year you can just launch right into your goals. You can just start working on stuff immediately. Also, it takes the pressure off on the holidays. You can then just enjoy the holidays. You don't have to think about what am I going to do next year? What am I going to do next year? And it's interesting. So this was an advice I got, and I started trying to implement it myself personally. And then I found as I got into the kind of the corporate world, that's how most large companies work, or how they should work. Often, it's people. We kind of all do the same things, um, but that's really how it should work. Where I know January 2nd, January 3rd, everybody starts rolling to the office. The first thing that our C-level executives and the executive VPs are going to start coming to me saying, "What's your team goals? What are you guys doing? What are your plans? What are your roadmaps for this year?" And I need to be ready. And it really is a good way to start the year off. I've already spoken with my team. I've told them that I don't believe in surprises. Whenever you're dealing with your teams, whether you're dealing with a large, again, corporate environment, or you're dealing with VAs, you always want to keep them in the loop. You always want to let them know what direction are you going, which direction are we pointed, what's the next stage, and that way there's no surprises. Think
Mhm.
about it from yourself. You wouldn't like it if a client or an employer or someone else came to you and started dropping things on you that you weren't prepared for. No one else likes that either. So always make sure that you're always communicating as much as possible. Before you have the roadmap laid out, say, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking about the roadmap. What do you folks think about it? What does everybody else think? Is it a good idea, bad idea? Are there problems in this in here that you guys see?" And sometimes you get some feedback. Sometimes it's not great. Sometimes it's actually really insightful. And someone will say, "Well, we've been doing it this way, and this is a problem." And then you find out either maybe one of your systems are wrong, or maybe there's a problem with one of these systems that you built up, or one of these tools that you built, and you didn't even realize there was a problem that worked fine when you did it, and now it doesn't. So
Mhm.
just a little quick tip about goals going into the new year. I'm a big fan, like, have your goals set if you can. If you don't, no big deal. It's not the end of the world. But try to get yourself in the position where you're setting your goals in advance, so that there's no surprises and you're already kind of getting your mind thinking about goals.
100%, 100%. So my trigger is like November, Thanksgiving. I like to do it, as we're full turkey, right? And we're meditating on that. So, with what's gone on in the past, you're grateful, you have that gratitude spirit. So I kind of like, get those. And I've done it for a while. Before, I used to just write them down and put them away. Then I go back. But now it's like there's more detail to them. There's more tracking to it. There's more attention drawn to those. So I really enjoyed that actually part of it, especially when you hit them or
Yeah.
get super close. Um, those are awesome. So, Charles, as far as like scaling, man, you've been that broad enterprise kind of businesses, right? As you develop your career, and I have a similar like later on down the years, but I also did eBay, and my buddy taught me the whole eBay and selling stuff and buying it, breaking down, reselling it. So
Mm.
you just made me think back a little bit of those days. They were very fun, very
Yeah,
fun.
it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things about business, and I always say that it prepared me for my own businesses as they got larger. It prepared me to be a better employee, because I started understanding how a business works. I could now explain to people, say, "Look, this person, the CEO, CFOs, they need things getting done. This business needs to make money. And how are we making money?" And it's really easy in large organizations, especially for someone to get hyper focused on, "I'm going to do X. I'm going to put, this round thing in this round hole over and over and over again." And they
Mhm.
don't know their larger goal. So often employees won't seek that out, but as a business owner, as a manager, you can inform your employees, let them know what they're doing, give them the win. People want to be part of a winning team. Again, whether I don't care if it's an employee here in the U.S., if offshore, VA, whatever, if you have a win, if they're doing something, then we get a win, even if it's a small win. Let them know. Say, hey, look, this thing you're working on, here's what happened. Here's why here's how this website is doing better because of what you did. And
Mhm.
everybody loves that. Everybody likes to know that what they do matters. It's not all about the
100%.
paycheck. It's easy to focus on the paycheck, but that's not what drives most folks. And I don't care where you're from. I don't care where you're from. People want to be on a winning team.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree, 100%. So, like, say somebody's starting, like some of our guys in the GMB pros, they have that 0 to, let's say 10K a month,
Mhm.
MRR, right? What are some of the things that you've seen, like, in marketing, right? SEO, GMB, ads, reputation management, website, content stuff. What do you see like that 0 to 10K? What are some of the things that to scale, right? Like, okay, you're gonna scale. Can you give us some pitfalls to avoid or take some stumbling stones to turn them into stepping stones?
So I'd say the number one pitfall, and I was guilty of this myself, especially in the beginning, whether it's small agency, you're running your own sites, everyone focuses on this is the money keyword. I want to go after this money keyword. That's it. Forget about everything else. That's all I care about. And some clients are like that too. We want to rank for this. And they get so focused, laser focused on we want to rank for this. And that becomes their KPI. And remember, the KPI is revenue. It's not rankings. Rankings actually is real low. Rankings, I don't even like rankings. I like impressions when I go into Search Console or whatnot. I look at impressions. Impressions are very nuanced though, because impressions, you could have a lot of impressions. That could just be because you rank really well for one keyword. Or maybe you rank so for a whole bunch of keywords. So impressions
Mhm.
is the start to understand how are you doing. And so that's what I always do, whether it's a large site or a small site. I just want to get an understanding of what's driving, number one, the visibility to the site. Knowing from an SEO point of view, what's driving the visibility to the site. Number two, and actually really even actually take that back. This is really number one, understanding what their current channels look like. What's driving traffic to them right now? It could be nothing. You could be like, nope, we're not getting any traffic. And often a client, especially a small client, is like, I'm not getting any traffic. Well, that's not true, because if they weren't getting any traffic, they wouldn't be in business and they certainly wouldn't have any money to pay you. So they're getting some kind of traffic. Maybe it's all word of mouth. It's all just, oh, I talked to this person and they talked to that person. And that's cool. That's awesome. So now you understand it's
Mhm.
100% word of mouth. And that kind of plays into the first thing that everyone needs to focus on is stop focusing on the keyword and start focusing on the brand. Because I'll bet you most of the clients you have, a lot of their business is word of mouth. And when it's word of mouth, now suddenly the brand and the reputation management becomes super important. The client typically will not care about that. They're going to say, no, 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 I want to rank. I want to rank. Yes, we do want to rank. But when folks find you, even if they type in plumber and they see the name, they're then going to search that name and try to understand who is this person. And I say that, and I know a lot of folks are probably like, oh, no, 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 we want to rank. We want to rank. Yes, but understand, look, I've worked for large companies. They spend millions of dollars on their brand. Brands are important.
Can
Understand
you
the brand.
can you tell us more about that? Like, what do you mean
Mhm.
by brand? Like, so the 0 to 10K guy helping their business or even their clients brand. Can you tell us more about it?
Yep, certainly. And I'll give you a nice search Google example too. So
Okay.
this isn't just the kind of the, 2000 or what is that, 60,000 square foot. Oh, brands are important. Here's a great example. When I worked for e-commerce, there was a website we had, and the website was plussizedlingerie.com. I don't think it exists anymore. Actually, I haven't checked it for years, so I'm sure someone's searching it right this second. But anyways, that was the site, and we actually ranked pretty well for, you guessed it, plus size lingerie. Why? Exact match domain. That was working well. And then a Google update came along and stopped ranking so well. We dropped, not a lot, but we definitely dropped. And at the same time, we noticed one of our other exact match domain websites. It was a costume site, Halloween costume site.
Mhm.
That we got a little knowledge panel in Google for it. And this was kind of in the early days of knowledge panel. And so it immediately hit something to me saying, wait a minute, this one's rankings, the costume site's rankings didn't get hurt But we now have this thing in Google, this knowledge panel thing. I don't even know if we called it a knowledge panel at the time. But Google knew it was a brand, whereas this other domain that went down and there were no knowledge panels. And I'm like, it's a brand thing. There's something about brands. Now, brands is huge now. Eat and authoritativeness and expertise and the I don't even remember the whole acronym. Expertise, experience,
Period.
authoritativeness, trust. Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. So so Google was already, this is years ago, trying to figure that out. So a brand does certain things. So the first thing we did for for the lingerie site is we said, well, we didn't have, and I started trying to figure out what did one site do, the other site, and I realized that the other sites all had all these social accounts. Our site didn't. And so the first thing I would do for any client, I'd say, all right, what social accounts do you have? Give me a a Gmail account that I can utilize, or create a Gmail account and then give them access to it. Whenever creating Gmail accounts with the clients, always make sure you give them access. Like, here's all the access you can get into it at any point you want, because sometimes they get very nervous, the idea of you're creating things with their name on their behalf. I can understand totally why they get nervous. It's their business, and totally understand. So you always want to make sure that you've got that visibility at all times. So you create that Gmail, and oh, they don't have a Facebook. Well, guess what? You create a Facebook, create an Instagram, create a Pinterest, create a this, create a that, create a TikTok, whatever. And often, especially like I have a B2B client I work with, and he's like, we're not doing anything on Facebook. You're right. You're not doing anything on Facebook. You're not doing anything on Instagram. We're doing very little. But a brand, most brands have Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts, and have all that, that list of social accounts, and just create them. Now, what does this do for us? That does a bunch of things. Number one, creates backlinks. So first of all, now we have a whole bunch of backlinks, very, very safe backlinks going to the homepage that, you're really never going to get hurt having all those different profile links. And when I say profile links, I'm talking about from the major socials. So you have a bunch of backlinks. Number two, you're building out your entity. You're building out your entity in the eyes of the search engine. So you're no longer we weren't just plus size costumes. That wasn't just a play to get the keyword. It was, but in Google's mind now, it wasn't just that. It was an actual brand name. And as we built out these profiles, and we did a little bit of visibility, a little bit of activity in them. Nothing major. I think maybe one post a week per profile at the most, and we had maybe 10 profiles at the time. I don't even know if we had that many. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to make sure that we were sending a signal to the search engine. It was interesting. Over the next couple of months, we started to slowly move back up for our primary keyword in the search rankings. So the power of brand way back, this is like 8-9 years ago at least, way back then, was super important. It's just as important now. I would say the next thing you can do to support that as a business is, does that business have schema on their homepage? On their web pages. If it does, set that schema up, and guess what you're linking to in that schema? There's going to be these same as links in schema. We can get more into that if you want, but there's going to be these links in the schema pointing to the other profiles, and you're going to point to all those profiles. When Google asks you to disambiguate yourself in your name, in your company entity name, you're going to give it the handle. Hopefully you're using a very consistent handle. Hopefully it's a brand name handle for all your profiles. Make sure you're defining that. Make it easy for Google to understand who you are and the other entities that you're associated with. That's what large businesses do. So that's what a small business needs to do. We need to emulate what a large business would do, because that's how Google's algorithms have been programmed.
Awesome. Awesome. So branding is like the first play. I love it. I call it like best practices. And I love how you said if more of us would stop trying to beat Google and just make it easy for Google to rank you, I think I'm gonna clone that one.
So I've got a quote from John Mueller, and I used some. I was speaking at the SEO Rockstars a couple months ago, and there's a quote I even put in my deck. And John Mueller was one of the few John Mueller quotes I really, really like. And it was, let me pull it up here. I've got it. SEO is all about not requiring search engines to read your mind. And I think that's amazing. So SEO is about not requiring search engines to read your mind. I hear that all the time with large organizations. Come on, can't Google figure that out? Maybe they can figure it out, but do you want them to have to work to figure something out? And it's
Yes.
just like a customer. Do you want the customer to have to work to buy from you? The answer hopefully is no. Do you want Google to have to work to figure out what your website's about or how to access all your information? No, you want to make it super easy.
100%, 100%. And that's one of the things that I learned, right? Entities, LSI, variations of your keyword. And when I do my audits, make it easy for Google to know where you're at, what keyword, and who you are.
Yeah.
who you are, where you're at, and what keyword you're trying to go
Yeah,
after.
what is
Easy.
Mike Marlino, he has the three who are you, what do you do, and where do you do it, I think are the
There
three
you go.
things
In
he's always
fact,
saying.
that's
And
where I
that's
got that from.
yeah, that's exactly yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah.
I've stolen that a bunch of times myself, and
Yeah.
I've told him, I was like, I'm just gonna rip you off, dude. I'm gonna steal it, put it in all my
Yeah.
decks.
Yeah.
So actually, so you started talking about like audits and stuff, and I think that's worth discussing. Again, whether we're talking about a multi-million-dollar organization or just a mom and pop plumber, there's really four pillars I use whenever I attack SEO. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my. Do you mind if I share my screen for
Yeah,
a quick
please.
second? Yeah, let me
Yeah.
share my screen, and I'm going to show you. Again, this is a slide from the deck I had used, and I'm going to put myself in presentation mode so it's a little bit easier to see. There's the quote, all about not requiring Google to read your mind. So these are the four pillars of SEO. This is my base SEO site strategy. I always attack all websites, all campaigns, and all problems in this order. So number one, so if you're looking at a site for the first time, the first thing I always do is I attack the technical issues. Can Google even find and read the site? Can Google even, like, is the page even accessible? Can Google see the page? Can Google render the page?
Say that again, Charles. Say that again.
So these are the four pillars. So number one, the first thing you should do if you have any problems, whether this is a brand new client site or a client comes to you with a problem, or you have a multi-million-dollar site, the first thing I always attack are the technical issues, or confirm there are no technical issues.
Yes.
Can Google access the website? Can Google see the website? Can Google crawl the website? Can Google crawl all the pages? And this is a big one. With both large and small organizations, I see JavaScript all the time. When I worked for a little company called Verizon, they love JavaScript. They love React, the React JavaScript platform. Near impossible for Google to know what was going on the website. So that was a problem. Until you fix that problem, you can put whatever LSI keywords you want on the page. You can throw as many links. You can do as whatever CTR. None of that other stuff matters until you fix the technical issues. Once you know that Google can access the site, and then really the question is, okay, Charles, how do you know that Google can access the site? It doesn't have to be super complicated. Google has a bunch of tools. One of them, Search Console. Put the page in Search Console. Inspect it. Can Google access it? Do you get any errors? Can you see the page? That's all you have to do. Not super complicated. If you don't have Search Console access, maybe they're not a client site, take the page and put it into one of the Google tools. Mobile friendliness went away. Use like the AMP validator or the rich snippets validator. Use one of those tools, and that'll tell you right away whether Google can access the page or not, and then you'll be able to see the page in the tool, and you'll know whether Google can see the tool. After you've confirmed that there's no major technical issues, and there's always going to be some technical problems on a website, but once you know that Google can get to the page and can see the page and crawl the pages, crawl the links, then you worry about the page content. And that's when you start, okay, is it optimized content? Are you using the keywords? Now we can start talking about keywords. Are we using the relevant keywords? We want to rank for, New Jersey plumber, let's just say. Well, are those words on the page? Are there related terms, related entity terms, related search terms on the page, co-occurring terms, words that would naturally show up in a conversation about plumbing in New Jersey? So is the word pipe on the page? Is the word leak on the page? Like, these are just like, you don't even have to get super complicated. There's lots of great tools out there, but you don't even have to do that initially. You just want to make sure that, does this page talk about something other than NJ plumber over and over and over again? It's okay to use the term, but we want to make sure that we're using the other related terms. And then how do you know your page is optimized properly? There are some, there's lots of great tools out there. Again, another quick cheat, you go into you go into a Google AdWords tool, you can have it analyze your page about what keywords the AdWords tool thinks your page is relevant for. Not 100% perfect. It's not 100, there's no 100% overlap with organic. I understand that, but it lets you know from a computer's point of view, a Google computer's point of view, what's
Mhm.
your page about? Does it think your page is about X? And so if you have some entity pollution going on the page, you'll see it immediately. If it starts talking about, I don't know, divorce attorneys or whatever, you're like, whoa, what's going on? And there's a problem on the page. After that, then we get into linking, building authority. The first kind of linking I always think about is internal linking. Make sure that you're sending Google the signals internally that you want Google to understand. What are the most important pages? Are you linking to them? And then obviously there's links coming in. A lot of that you can start out with just best practices, all the different profile sites out there worth building to. And then last but not least, quality user metrics. And this is where the brand starts becoming important. Are people searching the brand name? Are people looking for this brand name? If they are, that sends Google a signal, a trust signal that this is an important page, this is an important website, this is a real company, a real business. So these are, so that's that last part. But that you do that last. First, you solve your technical issues. Then you want to make sure you optimize your content. Then you worry about your linking, both internal and external. And then you worry about your user metrics and your CTR.
100%. Literally, this is almost like the path that I polished, that I learned, through Lee and William and the GMB pros, that I take now, just literally just now structure. And then, we talked about the project for SEO literally takes this, and yeah, there's subjects, right? Sub pillars, but essentially it's exactly,
It's
yeah.
those four pillars, and all of
Mhm.
your systems, all of your standard practice, all of your SOPs should fall under one of those four pillars. And so
100%.
when you bring a client on, you already have the pillars. Say, okay, our number one is get them in Search Console, do your audit, do this. That's under your technical. And then once you're done with that, what do we do next? You go to your content. All right, we do our keyword mapping, our optimization of pages. So you have all your SOPs under your content section. So
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. That's the high level. And then under it, you're going to have all of your SOPs. And then within your SOPs, you have your specific tasks. So hopefully everyone who's thinking, whether you're a small business, hoping to get large, whether you're medium-sized, large, whatever you want to do. And if you're feeling yourself like, oh my God, what do we do here? What do we do there? This is the outline. Those four pillars, and then you have your SOPs for under each pillar, and then you have your tasks within each SOP, and also now you have a plug and play. You can say, oh, I just learned a new, everyone gets so fixated on the new cool thing. Oh, I got Agency Assassin. I got this. I got, Google stacking. And I love it too. I love the shiny objects. I am horrible at chasing shiny objects, but it's cool. Once you've got those new tools, you can then plug them in to one of the four pillars either within the SOP or a new SOP in and of itself.
100%. Yep, 100%. And it almost has to be in that order, because I found, and I learned it the hard way, is like, so what if you have the right backlinks, and so what if you have the right content and you forgot to check the, do not index in your WordPress, right? It's like, what the hell, you
And
know?
that happens. That happens all the time. Again. I work for a large organization. We had a group. They set up a microsite within the site, and they're like, oh, "Okay, great, we're doing great." And like, "Where's all our traffic?" And I looked at it, and there was internal politics going on, and someone made a big announcement. We're ready to go. And I looked at it in like 30 seconds. I'm like, no index on the page. Come on, guys. And so I let them just do that for about a day or two. And they're like, where's all our traffic? They're like, hey guys, check the header on your page and check the robots meta tag and tell me what you see there. And it's like, oh my God. But
Yeah.
you gotta have fun too, especially, you gotta have fun. You gotta enjoy the process. It doesn't have to be a
Yeah,
slug.
absolutely. 100%. And then with there's like 11, 12 ways of rendering your site, right? They all render to the same spot and whatnot. And back to the audit, it's so crazy to me that the base best practices, the Google Search Console, analytics, stuff like that is not even on there.
Yeah.
And people forget stuff like Bing, like Bing is technical. Bing will give you the finger if you don't care about certain things,
Yeah.
that will force you to fix certain things. If Bing gets the attention, Google's gonna notice and give you some love.
So
But
that's a good point right there. So you talk about like Bing. A lot of businesses, they get so fixated, and we do as well. We get fixated. How are we doing in the Google local rankings, for example, or how are we doing on Google? And it's like, so well, yeah, okay, great. We're doing Google. Google's always going to be the 800-pound gorilla. Are you getting traffic on Bing? Are you getting traffic on? So we're thinking GMBs now, thinking local business. Are we getting traffic on Yahoo Maps, Bing Local, Apple Maps? Even Yelp, like, are all these channels working for us? If they're not, like, that's super low hanging fruit. Just making sure you have a listing and making sure it's updated. It's all going to support our GMB anyways. So,
mhm.
or GMP now, I guess, but it's all going to support it anyway. So we want to make sure all that stuff's been updated. But yeah, make sure that you have you're handling all these other channels. And even within Google, there's so many different channels. Yes, there's Google Search. Yes, there's Google Local. There's Google News. There's Google Discover. There's Google Images. There's videos, and then there's YouTube, there's so many different channels, and that's what large companies do sometimes very well, is understand all the different channels that are out there, and they're able to put somebody on the channel. Now, us as small, medium size, or hopefully growing to be large size companies, we can have those things. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be able to attack it all at once. Like some people might be thinking, oh my God, I got to do 20 different things now. No, just do one. Pick one and do it. And that goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning about having your plan for the year. Q1, this is what we're going to do. Q1, let's get that GMB and let's get that GMP optimized. Q2, let's claim and optimize our Bing, Yahoo, and Apple Maps listings. Like, it doesn't have to be a million things in 1 week. You spell out that plan, you take care of it in order, and you take the pressure off yourself, and you stay open with the client. Whoever your stakeholders, you stay totally like, here's what we're working on. If they say, I want more, okay, we can do more. It's going to cost more then. And often a client be like, okay, what do I got to give you for you to do it all in the next 2 months? And that's the conversation you'd rather have with them, as opposed to you trying to work harder, doing more for less, or doing more, not making any more.
Yeah. So Charles, can you speak on that as far as the pricing and charging? Because I learned, again, I learned it trial and error, right? Like, the price point to charge enough, because you got to go out and build stuff. If you're not doing it, you got to pay somebody to build stuff. But still, that time, like, are you going to devote yourself to one client, or you want to always scale? Today's subject is small to medium and scaling this up. Can you talk about price in the point of, guys, keep in mind that, shoot, I gotta go in fact, I just had this conversation. I gotta go out for the GMB, get a press release, citations, Web 2.0s, and build the social medias, right? I'm not doing that, you know? And, like, can you speak on that? Like, the price point, charging enough just to cover and get results. And then, like, is there, like, you come from these enterprises, is that an issue as well within, like, enterprise? And how do you deal with it even in that level?
So, all right, so a lot of questions in there. Let's let's start breaking them down. So,
Yeah.
so thinking about it from an enterprise, what companies always come to me for is that if I say, hey, I want, $5,000 a month to get this, this software as a service, this SaaS, package from whatever it be, whether you want conductors or one of these guys like that. I'm gonna get a note from my finance team. As a matter of fact, I take it back. I'm not even gonna get a note from my finance. I can't even talk to my finance team unless I can make a business case, unless I can explain to them, here is the benefit. Here's the cost, but here's the benefit of doing this. Like, okay, we're gonna spend $5,000, but it opens us up to potentially making $10,000 a month, or $20,000 a month, or $1 million a year, or something like that. I have to explain to them. It's not also necessarily that we need to necessarily make money with it, but I also always explain that here is, and this is something that it makes the case very easy in enterprise. Here is how much the current organic traffic drives: 25% of the business, 20% of the business, 35% of the business. Here's how much revenue it drives, and here's the value of that. So number one, we want to buy this just to protect that. So step one, we have to protect this. Step two, we want to grow this. Even if we only grow at 2%, this is what we can make from it. So making sure it's very, very clear dollars and cents. Now, when you're dealing with clients, it's going to be a little bit different. You're not going to go to them saying, we want, $20,000 a month, or you're not necessarily going to, oh, we're going to increase you 1% and look how many more millions of dollars that makes. That's not going to play to them very well. What we need to understand as SEOs, and I was super guilty of this when I started taking on like consulting work and whatnot. Like, I would always undercharge, and then when I wouldn't undercharge, I'd feel horribly guilty about thinking I was overcharging. And then it hit me one day, when my plumber came, and it took him like literally 15 minutes to fix something that I thought was going to be like a whole big project. And he's like, look, I got to charge you something for it. And so it was like $500, something like that. I'm thinking to myself, he spent like 2 hours, maybe at the most, and that's including his drive time. Like, if he's a professional and get paid, I'm a professional, I can get paid. But the bigger question is, how do you know how much to charge? How do you know if you're even making money? And that's the bigger problem that most of us, when we have our small companies or medium-sized companies, we don't even necessarily know if we're really making money. So you get a client and you named off a bunch of different things. Okay, citations, Web 2.0s, claiming the business. All of those things have a cost assigned to them. And so that's, again, we're thinking back to those four pillars, the SOPs. The SOPs have actual tasks. Within the SOPs, there are actual tasks. Each one of those tasks has a line item. So let's just take, for example, claim the GMB or GMP. How much time does that take? Let's just pretend it takes an hour. It takes an hour. Who's going to do that? Is Alfredo going to do it? Is Charles going to do it? Is the VA going to do it? Who's doing it? So have a very clear, specific, how long is it going to take? Who's going to do it and what's their cost? If I'm the one who's doing it, for whatever reason, I think Carlos, you had said I always end up doing it myself. And that's fine. If you want to do it yourself, that's okay to do it. Then you're going to say, okay, this is who's doing it. What's their time worth? And now you suddenly have to have a very honest opinion with yourself, like how much are you going to work for? And he's like, I want to work for, do you want to work for $5 an hour or do you want to work for $200 an hour? If you want to work for $200 an hour, that's fine. But then make sure you put that in your lineup, $200 an hour. Takes 1 hour, costs of $200 an hour. Boom, we know our cost is $200 an hour. Now, if I want to replace myself, because that should be our goal is to replace ourselves, we're going to have every line item, who is doing it, whether it's a VA, whether it's maybe outsourced, I don't care whether you're doing a Legit or Fiverr or whatever. You have a name assigned to it. You have the cost assigned to each. You have the total cost. Now, what does your profit margin want to be? You want to make an extra 10%, an extra 20%, an extra 30%, an extra 40%, and then you have to add that on there as well. So for the initial onboarding, claim GMB, citations, Web 2.0, there's a line item for each one of those items on an Excel spreadsheet. Who's doing it, how much it's going to cost to have them do it. You've got your entire cost lined up. Then you put your profit on top of it. Maybe you're the one doing each line. That's okay. Maybe you're the one doing the line and you know that you want to make $200 an hour, but you realize you can't charge more than $30 to do X line. That's fine. Now you know how much you're making. That's okay. We know now. We have our cost. We put our profit on top of it because we eventually want to replace ourselves for all of these different line items. And that's how you figure out how much to charge. You do not guess. You do not say, well, I want to make $100 an hour and I think I can do this in about an hour and a half, so I'll charge 150. That's the wrong way of doing it. You spell out in your SOPs who's doing it, what has to be done, who's doing it, what's the cost. What has to be done, who's doing it, what's the cost. You're going to have a list of it. You're going to have a total at the bottom. Then you're going to put your profit margin in it, and now you know how much you need to charge. And some of us are going to look at it and say, oh my God, I've been horribly undercharging for years. And that's probably going to happen, and that's okay. And you're going to have to slowly start bringing the prices up, figuring out how can you save money, how can you have it done, how can you have things done cheaper. A lot of times it's just about creating better systems.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you said the Excel, and I think we talked a little bit about this. Um, Project management software, is it important? When should you apply it? When should you do this breakdown, right? Somebody that's just learning marketing or the first 10K, or I just do the one thing, right? Like, how does that?
So, okay, so software, there's a lot of people selling project management software. I'm not gonna say anything wrong with project management software. I like an Excel sheet. I'm an Excel guy. I'll make an Excel sheet. Well, I've been making Google Sheets lately, mainly because it's easier to share between people and computers. So I have kind of been going over to even though I still love Excel, I still go back to Excel. I still use that. I use that in my large company. I'm not a big fan of Asanas and things like that. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not functionally wrong. When you're dealing with lots of different people, it's probably very, very necessary. I find myself having my list and my team looks at my list and they know where their name is on the list. It's locked. No one else can change it but me. They can go in, they can see what needs to be done and who needs to do it. I keep myself as the gatekeeper. I probably shouldn't be. I take that back. I should definitely not be the gatekeeper. There should be a project manager that's managing who's done what and when, and they should be the gatekeeper. I'm a control freak, so I like to be the project manager. So I have a very expensive project manager right now, but I manage it that way. I know what's happening. I can always kind of keep in my mind now a little bit what's going on, who's doing what. In a large in our organization, day to day when I'm dealing with other teams, they have all different kinds of project tools. I think Fox uses like Jira, I think is the tool they use, and we want things done by the programming team. We have to write a ticket. But even there, I make sure very, very organized and because you have to remember, and well, again, whether this is a VA or whether I'm dealing with my front end development team, they're coming into the project totally fresh. And they don't know what I'm talking about. When I say we need canonical tags, to most of us on the call, maybe that's like, well, obvious we need canonical tags, and you don't have to explain anything. It should be super obvious. Well, no, canonical tags, they're in the head section of the page, they're on the front end. You explain what it is you want to do, what it is you want to do, and why you want to do it. Because maybe there's a way they can make it easier for you and you don't realize it. So what do we want to do? Why do we want to do this? Exactly what you expect them to do, and then what should it look like when they're done? How do they know they've done it properly? Especially if this is going to be QA'd by somebody else, how do they know and check that? Okay, how does Carlos check Kyle's work? Because both of them came in fresh, and now they're coming in. Now they're doing two different parts. They may not even talk to each other, may not even know each other very well. How do you do that? And that way you have what the expectation is. So we've been doing this. I have a template. I use templates for everything. No one should be doing things on the fly. You make templates, and if your template doesn't work, you change the template. There's nothing wrong with updating your template constantly if necessary. I've talked to front end developers on our team. They love doing work for the SEO team because it's really, really clear. They know what they have to do. And often I'll get people give me some feedback and say, hey, you're asking us to do it this way. There's an easier way to do that. And I'll always put that. If there's an easier way to implement this or achieve this goal, let us know. And I've had some come back to me and say, oh, yeah, we can achieve that goal in half the time by just doing it this way. And we'll talk through it for a few minutes. And I'll say, great, I'll change the ticket, do it. I don't want to be the one involved in all the details. Let them be the detail people. But I am the one defining what is success. What does success look like?
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Love that. And would you say you want to do this right from the get-go?
Yeah, I didn't, but you do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
None of
Same
us did.
here.
None of
Yeah,
us did it
same.
right from the get-go, but you
Yeah.
do it. But that's okay. You stop immediately and say, all right, what am I doing for this client? I'm doing this, I'm doing that. All right, let's make up some processes, make up some SOPs, and you break down, all right, let's just say we're doing let's just say we're doing some CTR manipulation for a GMP. Not that anyone would ever want to do CTR manipulation. That would be wrong. But let's just pretend, we'll use some silly example. So what is that process? What does it look like on a monthly basis? Well, we would do this, and we would do this, and we would do this. So you make those steps. Who does each one of those steps? How much time does it take? And what is the cost of their time? And then you can start making like nice little functions and not macros, but nice little equations in Excel where they're like, okay, Carlos gets X an hour, Charles gets X an hour, Kyle gets X an hour, and then you can put their amounts in the sheet, and then it can do a little V lookup when it sees the name. It then knows how to multiply it against you want to give somebody a raise, just put it into the sheet, and now you know how much everything's costs. So you're like, hey, I really want to give Kyle a raise. I want to pay him a little bit more. You put it into the sheet, and you can see how much more everything's going to cost now. When a client comes to you and says, I need to get this done right away, you can then say, well, you want us to do 5 months worth of work in 2 months. We can do that, but it's going to cost this now. And you can just look at it's not even a question. It's like, okay, it's just going to cost this. And they can say, great, here you go. Because you'd be amazed how many business owners I've dealt with, especially the medium to larger or the largest medium, that money isn't necessarily the problem. Money isn't always the concern. If you're not getting more money from them, it's because maybe they don't trust you. And it's not like, oh, I think this guy's a shyster or something. It's just that they don't know if you're really going to get it done. I've had people come to me and I say, well, I can do this for you. And he's like, great. Well, how can we do it twice as fast? And I say, well, I can spend twice as much time, but it's going to cost you twice as much. Okay. Like that was the negotiation. I just doubled my revenue from that client in a month because he wanted twice as much work. And I was like, yeah, okay, I doubled his charge. And that was a conversation I didn't even get a chance to pull on my sheet to figure exact. I just said, well, we're going to do about twice as much, so it's going to cost twice as much. I was about to tell him I was going to charge him 50% more because it wasn't an actual doubling of cost. He doubled my revenue. I was like, okay, I wasn't going to argue with him. Then I go right back to my sheet and say, okay, instead of doing this a month, I'm doing this and this, and then I can figure out my cost. And I know all my steps need to be done, and I know how much more I'm making. And there was no stress involved in it. And adding that extra work wasn't harder other than just, all right, now I got to make sure that person can do that, or I got to get another person to do this extra work.
That makes so much sense right now, as far as something like that. Now, Charles, so we're moving up, we're scaling, we're making 50K, 60, 70K. We got a couple big whales, right? Hey, I got Charles over at Verizon, or I got Charles over at, you know, whatever big company.
Mhm.
I got this opportunity on Upwork. I'm pitching them. I got it. Now, how does the workaround? Because I know I've experienced that. Okay, I want to change this on the website. I want to change that as far as content. Okay, let me get with the director of marketing. Let me get the developer. Like, oh my God, it's just the title tag, or you're going for 300 words.
You just want to change a title tag. I've done that. I'm laughing because I deal with that on a daily basis. I
Yeah.
looked at a title tag on a page and I really wanted the word news to show up on it. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to take 4 weeks to put a word on on there.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, no problem. That's the role. So when you're dealing with large organizations, so the first question I always ask everyone is, if you want to deal with a large organization, that's fine. Are
Mhm.
you prepared to deal with an organization that just can't move fast? If you were an agency for us at Fox or at Verizon or any of the large companies, it would just take us a certain amount of time to get things done. Even what I would call my smaller companies, where there was, oh, I could just go talk to Chuck in the IT team and he could take things down. But even he would take a couple weeks to get it done. Um, so how do you handle that? So number one, you want to spell out exactly what needs to be changed. You want to have your list, and you find out from the client, how do we understand their process? So if you're dealing with a large organization, if you're dealing with a whale, you want to understand their process, understand their pain points. So as an agency, you want to make their life easier, because how do you survive as an agency with one of these whale clients, with a
Mhm.
Verizon or an AT&T or a Fox or whatever? It's not in the ways that we think. We often think, I've got to get them ranking great in the next 2 months. Not necessarily. I'm not saying you don't want to worry about rankings and traffic, and I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is, understand that it's a totally different game. You need to provide them. This is a person who may or may not know SEO to begin with. This may just be a manager who's been in charge of SEO. So now it's your job to educate them why this is important, and then your job's when communicating with them, and this is where it's probably worth having account managers who just focus on dealing with these clients, because it becomes, otherwise that ends up becoming your life as the business owner, and you don't want your focus to get broken away from the business like that. So it's better to start thinking, having account managers. You want people person with the heart of a teacher, who is willing to come to somebody and say, here's why this is important. We're going to do this. We're going to make this change. It's going to make this kind of impact, and here's why it's important. And their job becomes what I call, when it comes to enterprise, data, decks, and specs. It's not as much about ranking and traffic. Yes, that's the end goal, but it's constant communication, because you're dealing with people who have no concept of what we're talking about. And you
Mhm.
have to explain to them, say, okay, we want to rank for, I don't know. Here's a great example. We have one of the brands in Fox is called Fox Weather. They did not have local weather pages about what's the weather in, Miami, Florida. And I said, hey, we should have local weather pages. And I was told almost immediately, nope, that's not what we want to do with this website. I'm like, it's a weather site. Don't we want to have the weather on the weather site? Like, to me, it was just obvious. Like, no, no, no. They had some other grand plan. So I'm like, all right, let me explain it in a way that everybody understands. I made a simple chart. And on the chart, it was a bar chart. So we're not getting complicated. This is an Excel bar chart. One bar was the opportunity, and it had the number, how many searches per month. And then I showed how we are doing, which was basically zero. And then I showed our top 3 or 4 competitors, how much traffic they were getting. I didn't have to say we need this. I just said here is the opportunity for local weather. They saw the opportunity, they saw where we were, they saw where our competitors were, and the question wasn't, is this necessary? The question was, okay, Charles, how do we do this? And now you've just changed the conversation. So it's not you're not worrying about changing title tags. You're getting them to buy into, you are the expert, and you are showing them the way to make more money. And they're not even expecting this in 2 days or 3 days. You're going to say, this is what we're going to do. Now we're going to make a plan to get to that point. Here's the first step, then step 2, then step 3, then step 4. So that's where this account management becomes super important. Often with the whale clients, the person you're dealing with is not an SEO expert. They're terrified of losing their job, especially if they don't know SEO. And so you're constantly communicating to them. Every month or every other month, you should be giving them a chart saying, here's what we did. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we did. Here's what we're doing. And you keep communicating back so that they can communicate to their boss, who in turn is going to communicate to their boss, who's in turn going to communicate. Like there's so many levels of communication. That's why I say the data decks and specs are so important, because you're handing something off to the client who then has to repackage that and hand it off again and again and again. So it's that communication. If I can't say it enough, I'll say it one more time. Communication is the important part. Explain to them why you're doing things, and what the next step is going to look like.
That totally makes sense, because I'm thinking of this boutique franchise company I was dealing with, and it was literally like that. The marketing content gal was an old Target marketing gal, and I wanted to change a couple websites, and like in my mind, it was obvious. There's nothing there. There's nothing to destroy, and they're like, no, and the Target gal was like, you're going to destroy the brand. Like,
Yes.
there's nothing there. But if I would have taken it with that, okay, this is the goal, this is the benefit, this is why, it's kind of self-explanatory, right? And you're right, there's other people that they have to take it to, or they don't understand it, or you have to take what's in your head, put it on paper, and show the benefit.
I'm
And
gonna share my screen. So I actually have a presentation I'm giving in about a week and a half, and it's on this similar subject. I didn't know we were gonna be talking so much about this. I would have put these in a special slide just for you guys. So I'm gonna share this. Let me do this. So here is the problem, and because I've had this exact problem, I designed this because of this problem. I wanted to put a word on the headline. So we had this at Verizon all the time. The H1 tag was, "We do it better." Like, what does that even mean? Like that doesn't mean anything to anybody, but it was part of their brand lifestyle, and there was a marketing reason for doing it, but it was horrible for SEO. So I had to say, well, we need this word on the page. And then I got the blocker, some marketing CEO, not even necessarily a director, not even necessarily a director, somebody who's the gatekeeper. I've had gatekeepers that have immense power in these organizations. They have immense technical power. They're the ones who know how to upload the change to the page. Nobody else does. And it's amazing the amount of power this one little person has, and they wield it. They will happily wield that power. So what I like to do is I don't argue. I let them come to the decision. So let me go back in the slideshow. So here is what I would call my optimization gap. Sorry. So what I will do is, here's a kind of a pretend furniture site made by Amish. Here are the keywords we're going after. Here are the co-occurring keywords we want to show up on the page. And what I show them is, it's very simple. Okay, here's our page, this bar, this group on the left-hand side. Here's where the keywords, the important keywords, show up in the title tag, and the meta description, and the headers, or in the body. Here's how our average competitor does it, and here's what our competitors look like. And so now this is really simple green and red boxes. And you can immediately see, well, wait a minute, we have lots of reds. Our competitors have lots of greens. Maybe we should do the same things our competitors are doing. Maybe they're on to something. Maybe having the word Dutch, for example, on the page would be very important. Or Lancaster maybe should be on the page because that's co-occurring, that's important. Or maybe the word chair should be on the page. And now suddenly you stop having the argument of, well, we can't do it because it's against the brand guidelines, to here's my recommendation, and here's why I recommend it. And now they can just look at the page. They can look and see that everyone else is doing it but us, and maybe that's why we're not ranking #1. And so something as simplistic as a chart like that, you make it very visual for them, because again, you have someone who doesn't know anything about SEO, and it's not that it comes across as being very hostile to SEO, and it's not hostile to SEO, it's they want to protect their position. They don't necessarily know how this is going to change. Here comes this guy from this organization, wants to make all these changes to the website. Nobody makes changes to the website. Changes are dangerous. Change can go wrong. Going wrong hurts my position in the organization. I don't want to change. So So the reason I like to make it very visual is I say, well, here are my, let's take a look. Here's how our sites look. Here's how our competitor sites look. And they can immediately see, oh, wow, our competitors are using all these words and we're not. And they will start often saying, maybe we should put all these words on our page. You don't even have to say it often. You're like, I think that's, and then you can say, you stole my thunder. That's exactly what I was going to say. And they still may say, nope, we cannot use this word. So and so does not like that word. Okay, fine. We won't use that word. We'll use all the other words then. And then you craft something. You say, this is what I was thinking. Does this work for you? A lot of us, look, we're crafty SEOs. We know what we can and can't get away with. For example, title tags. We know that title tags, Google reads past 65, 75, 85. Google reads very deep into a title tag. Maybe, and I did this all the time with Verizon, is we would put the old brand. So they love changing brands. They love changing product names. Problem is they taught our customers the old brand. And so they didn't want to strip the old product names off the website. And people are still searching for it. So I would do something very simple. I would build out a new title tag, 75 words long, 75 characters long. After the 75th character, I'd start putting in the other words, the no-no words, the words that brand wouldn't like, maybe even legal wouldn't like, but no one's going to see it other than Google. Google will see it. It'll still rank for us. And you can now get these words on the page without anybody freaking out on you. So that's another little just technical trick to, a good little takeaway you can take.
Awesome. I appreciate this, Charles. We're coming up on our 60-minute mark. So just a couple more questions, just a few questions to wrap it up. What would be like a summary? Like, guys, if we once we leave here, like what the team, the family can do, like, okay, scaling small to medium, guys, do these 1, 2, 3 steps.
I would say the best thing to do, whether you're just starting out, whether you've had your business for years now, is make sure you adhere. I like the 4 pillars. Come up with your own pillars if you want. That's fine.
Yeah.
But you have your top level, like technical, content, linking, authority, a user experience. Have those. And then you're going to have your SOPs under each of them. Your SOPs will have your individual tasks. And then that should tie in perfectly with your little Excel sheet or Google Sheets where you've broken out all these tasks. What's the task? Who's doing it? How long does it take? What does it cost? So now this is all tied together. You can even have all these things linking together with, with the hyperlinks and everything. So now you know exactly how much everything costs you. If you want to increase your profit margin, you just put that into the sheet. It now calculates it out. Now you know how much to charge. When you get the client, once that ink dries, great. What do I do? Step 1, step 2, step 3. You don't even have to ask. And now you can hand that off to somebody. You can hand that off to a project manager. Say, okay, well, you're going to make sure these 10 steps get taken care of in the first month. This is how long it should take each step. When you get a new VA and you can say, hey, you should be doing these 3 steps. Here's about how long each of these steps should take. So that way, if you have a VA that maybe they don't know, maybe they think they can take a little longer than they should take, maybe they take half the time and they come back to you and say, I can do it in half the time. Now you know you got a star. Now you know you got somebody that, hey, I can pay this person extra because they're doing everything in half the time.
Absolutely. Great. So before we end with the last question, Kyle says, how long do you gamble on the length of the title tag, knowing it'll get truncated?
So yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Kyle. So the title tag will get truncated in the search results. Now it gets truncated. You'll hear a lot of people say, "Oh, it's 65 characters." It's actually based on pixels. So for example, if your title tag was all lowercase i's, you'll have more lowercase i's on the search page than if they were all like capital D's, because it's just a pixel amount. The length of the title tag is only based on the length of the title tag is only what Google displays. It's not what Google reads. I've done testing. We could spend an entire program talking about testing, but I've done testing. Google has no functional limit to the length of a title tag. Don't go crazy though. You do 1,000 character, I've done 1,000 character title tags. I've done 3,000 character title tags. Google still reads into it. Don't go too crazy because there are SEO narcs out there that will just love to tattle on you to Google. Look what someone's doing. No, look what Kyle's doing. I'm gonna report him. Maybe Google will do something, maybe they won't. So yeah, you don't go crazy. I do about 100 characters, give or take. All the tools will all yell at me. If you run any of your tools on any of my websites, they'll all yell at me saying my title tags are too long, my meta descriptions are too long, I'm using meta keywords. Oh, I do all kinds of things that tools don't like. But that's okay because, excuse me, I've run tests. I know it works. I know it doesn't work. There are reasons I do all my things. So again, title tags, don't worry about the truncation. Google still uses it, even if it's passed, even if it's getting truncated. That's just visible. That's just for visibility on the search engine.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. Lee ran tests through same thing. I think you met Lee, Charles.
Yeah, no, actually, so I was talking to Lee. This is going
Yeah.
back. This is at oh, I guess it was Rock Stars. Maybe it was spring training. And I made he said something about title tags. It's like, yeah, I ran a test. I heard you guys ran tests too. Lee and I, we all do. I'm on SEO Fight Club now. So
Okay.
I was telling him, I was like, I said years ago I ran one. I went to 1,000 characters. He's like, you wussy. I said we went to 20,000. I don't know what he went to, but he went to some ridiculous number. I'm like, yeah, I never would have thought to go that big. But yeah, there's just no functional limit. Meta descriptions, another. So I'm sorry. It's one little thing. A lot of people complain about rewriting meta descriptions. Here's a little tip. Google rewrites the meta description when it doesn't find the keyword, or more important, the search query that people searched for. So if people are using search queries to hit your pages that are not showing up in your meta keyword, or I'm sorry, not meta keyword, meta description, Google will rewrite your meta description on the search page. So look at your pages, look what search queries are bringing traffic in, and make sure those are in your meta description. Again, your meta description doesn't have to be 150 or 250 characters. It can be as long as you want. Google might truncate or take a portion of your meta description. That's okay. Let Google grab what it wants to grab, but it's at least grabbing something that we've defined.
100%. Absolutely. Now, the last question here as we end, Charles, I asked this to, I try to remember to ask all our guests, what is a fun fact about you that nobody knows?
Oh, that nobody knows. Let me think here. All right. When I was in high school, okay, two parts to this. When I was in high school, maybe even eighth grade, I found bees fascinating. And for some reason, my father agreed to get bees, and we had a small apiary, beehives, honeybees. And then I found out after 3 years, I was deathly allergic to honeybees.
Oh.
And I got stung one day, and I found out. I'm like, okay, and that didn't last that long after that. We didn't have them that much longer after that. But little fun fact: not only did I keep bees for a while, I also am deathly allergic to honeybee stings.
Ah, that's horrible. Yeah, I had a buddy, he actually carried a
The
EpiPen.
EpiPen, yep, I've
Yeah,
got them.
because of that. Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you, Charles. I appreciate the knowledge, the fun facts that you gave us here today. GMB Pros, take a look at that slide he showed. I'm telling you, there's magic in there. Do not fall asleep on that. It makes a lot of sense. I've adopted something almost identical to that. Set up your processes early, know what you're charging, charge enough to make sure you cover your bone, leave enough meat on that bone to, if you make mistakes, if something's not happening, you can allocate it to a little quick ads, right? And
That's
kind
a
of
great point, man. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's a
no, but
great point. You
yeah,
have, yes, make sure, and I don't do this, and I'm going to start doing this now. I'm going to add this to all my procedures. Sometimes we make mistakes and we got to pay somebody to fix those mistakes. That should be in there should be a 10% maybe or something in all of your line items for just a mess up, or you want to do a little something extra for a client.
yes,
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm adding that to my
awesome.
calculator now.
Awesome.
My oops line,
There
10%.
you go.
Oops.
There you go. Yeah. So I appreciate you guys, those that are catching the replay. I appreciate everyone. Have a great holiday. As we come up for next week, we're gonna have another short week next week, guys. So we'll let you guys know when who we have and what we're having as a topic that day. With that being said, much love, much success, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Happy New Year.
Thanks.